Turn to James chapter 3. James chapter 3, we're going to start verse 13 and read down to the end of the chapter. I was looking at my laptop. Remember last week it decided to update on me? Wouldn't that be nice if we could just download some updates? Well, I'm feeling kind of behind. I want a new version. James chapter 3, verse 13 beginning. Who among you is wise and understanding? Let him show by his good behavior his deeds in the gentleness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, do not be arrogant, and so lie against the truth. This wisdom is not that which comes down from above, but it is earthly, natural, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every evil thing. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, reasonable, full of mercy and good fruits, unwavering, without hypocrisy. And the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Now keep your ribbon there. Our primary text is going to be verse 17. Had a couple of comments we're going to make introductory wise there at verse 13, and then most of the time we'll be right there in verse 17. We won't cover everything in this text. That would take us 6 weeks on a Wednesday night class, which if you really want to, we'll put it on the list. So the first thing I want to point out is that being smart isn't always wise. And we'll unpack that as we go into it. But our verse 13 asks, who among you is wise and understanding? And if you think you are, then how you do it is not proclaim it, but you show it by behavior. By his good behavior, his deeds in the gentleness of wisdom. It's not the proclamation. It is the behavior. You know, we live in a world that is so full of confusion and noise, and everybody has an opinion. And I do not want to take that right away from us. I think it's wonderful that we can all have an opinion, and they can be 100% opposed to one another. And we live in a country where you're pretty free to say those things. That's good. But we also have to have the wisdom to understand, when is it just pointless noise confused with wisdom? And one of the dangers we have is that if there is a movie star, especially if it's your favorite movie star, and he or she has an opinion, all of a sudden that sounds like wisdom because they're really a good actor. Now, pardon my frankness, they may be dumb as a box of rocks other than their ability to act, but because they have stage presence, because of their career, all of a sudden they think they're wonderfully intellectually smart and can tell the rest of us how to run our lives. Watch out for the pointless noise. Now here's the hard part. You get to decide which is which. And the only advice I can really give you is run it through the filter of the Bible. And if what my favorite performer says doesn't match up with the Bible, I don't care how good they perform on stage. If what they say and advise doesn't match up with the Bible, I don't want to go there. That's not what I need. That's not what you need. So intelligence and wisdom are not the same thing. Don't confuse those. There are a lot of intelligent people who couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. They don't know anything. They don't know how to run their life. Maybe down there in their little niche where they do their thing, they are intelligent. But outside of that, they're not. How many doctors do you know who have run their lives because they didn't have the intelligence to live a good life outside? Or maybe professionals or lawyers. Oh, this would be a fun one. Politicians, right? Intelligence. That doesn't mean you're wise. It just means you know a lot of things. Now I want to know, do you know what to do with those things you know? So earthly wisdom is always about, how can I win? I got to get up the ladder. It's a dog-eat-dog world. How can I get them before they get me? You know, it's kind of a brutal thing there. We don't want that. So we want to ask, what kind of wisdom are we really living by? Now, none of us are going to bat 1,000. We're going to mess up now and then. Don't beat yourself up too bad about that. But look at the consistent overall picture. When you respond to conflict, do you do it wisely? Or you jump down in the gutter with the worst of them? When you post opinions on your social media, do you think first? Or you just let it blow out there and then have to go back and try to clean it up? When you make decisions, Is it the wisdom from above or the wisdom from below? Because I know one thing we all share in common is we want to live a good life. We want to have a happy life. We're going to get up in the morning and be able to say with all sincerity, thank you, Lord, for another day. Lay our heads down at night and be able to say again, thank you, Lord, for another good day. I'm looking forward to a good one tomorrow. That's basically what we all share in common. Now, what I'm going to tell you is the wisdom from above is the way to get the closest to that idea. Now, did you catch my hedge? I said the closest. You're never going to hit it 100%. It doesn't work 100%. That's the way life is. I'm sorry. But I would rather be hitting up there at 80, 85% than some of the folks I know that are down there at 20 and 30%. You know? Now, you get to pick which one you want. So if you'd rather live down there in the low, dark, deep 15% range, that's your business. But I'd rather shoot for the 95, 98. And if on rare occasion I get 100% on a single day or a single hour, that's a bonus. That's good stuff. So James 3:17, our primary focus here, and we are going to break this down, but he said, the wisdom from above is first pure, and it's peaceable, gentle, reasonable, full of mercy and good fruit, unwavering, without hypocrisy. Now, let me tell you, we're not going to hit every item in that verse. We're going to hit about 5 of them. Heavenly wisdom, number 1, is gentle. It is not brute strength. It is not trying to bash somebody down and beat someone in submission and hold strong power over them. Now, I have a different philosophy. I want you here because you want to be here. I want you to be a part of this work because you want to be here. The last thing I want to do is have to be the traditional kind of pastor who has to go chasing after everybody. I got to look at the attendance list, see who all wasn't there, and now I got to chase you down all day Monday and Tuesday, and kind of lean into you a little bit, twist your arm a little bit to be sure you're back Wednesday or Sunday. That takes a lot of work. That's a lot of time. I have other places. I hope this doesn't sound too selfish, but I have other places I'd rather be spending my time. You know, when people wanted to walk away from Christ, you know what he did? He let them walk. He didn't go chasing them down strong-arming. What God wants are people who want him and want him more than anything else in life. And when we have people like that, then where are they going to be most of the time? I mean, life's going to happen. We get that. So heavenly wisdom, it's not brute strength, but really it's strength under control. It's being able to tell the right thing to do. In Matthew 11:29, he says, take my yoke upon you. He says, because it's gentle. It's not a hard thing to do. Let's read that quickly. Matthew 11:29. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. The people with the greatest peace and the greatest enjoyment in life are those who finally get it. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Now, people can fight against it. We see it all the time. And they don't look like happy people to me. I would prefer this way overall. Now, it cannot coexist with pride. You've got to have a major thing. The reason I'm hedging on you is turn over Proverbs 51. Is that all of us are going to stumble now and then. There's going to be a bad day, and you're just not going to get it right. And I don't want you to play strike one, you're out with yourself. But at the same time, the gentleness. Here he says, a gentle answer turns away wrath. This is approach we train in. You never escalate. You try to come in a volume lower, the next notch on the knob down than the person you're talking to. Because we are all this way. If you're yelling at me and I decide I'm going to outdo you by a little volume, then if you're as normal as most folks, you're going to, oh, no, you're not outdoing me. And then it's going up and it's going up, and we're going to get a sore throat in the process. And so it's that gentle answer that kind of brings things down. May not always be the resolution I want, but it isn't the train wreck that I know I did not want. But then it goes on to say, but harsh words stir up anger. And we avoid those. That's where our pride gets in the way. So gentleness doesn't mean silence, and we'll say a little more about this in the next point. I am not saying you cannot say what needs to be said. What we are saying is that it is said with the right love and the right tone, and as James called it, just that gentleness. It's peaceful. It is peaceable. And that's what we're after. It may not be what I want to hear. It may not be what you want to hear. It may convict me and step on my toes. But there's a way we can step on one another's toes at times. And yes, it's uncomfortable, but it still has a productiveness to it. And there's a way we can do it where we walk away just going, I don't like that guy. That's not productive. We don't want that one. So I'm not asking you to be quiet. I'm just asking you don't come in like a, what do we say, bull in a china closet. We're not there to destroy the weak. Our whole goal is to take whoever's in trouble, get their attention, and help them get their balance and back on their feet so they can do the things they need to do to live the happy life they need to live. And if we are having that conversation, what that means is they're in my life to some extent, and I want a happy life. And I'll get in trouble for saying this maybe, but you know what us men like to say? Happy wife, happy life. What I'm trying to tell you is the happiness in the people in my life around me matters to me because it is going to influence me. If the people I associate with the most are always angry and bitter and frustrated, it's going to take the joy out of my life. So if I can help them, then I help them and I also help myself. And then that would extend out a little bit further because after all, Christianity is a lot about life skills, and one of the life skills is learning not to crush the weak, but to be, we don't have this verse, but it just came to mind, to be wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove. That's where we want to go. So when people hear us and we're talking, now you don't get 100% control over how people interpret you. But there are some people that just have no awareness of how they sound. They have no care. If you don't like the way I sound, tough. That's your problem. No. Don't be that. I know that sometimes we're going to say things and be misunderstood. That's okay. But the question is, am I misunderstood on this rare occasion? And I remember a couple of years ago that happened, and then before that, another year ago that happened. Okay, that's life. But if I constantly sound angry and aggressive, and every time I open my mouth, I sound like I'm looking for, don't let me say every time, because I know how people play that game. It's like, well, I don't sound that way every time. Well, I sound that way about 9 times out of 10, but that's not every time, so I must be okay. Now, if it's a consistent pattern there, that's not going to get us where we're wanting to go. I want a happy life. I want to be able to sit down at the end of my life in my proverbial rocking chair on the front porch, sipping my hot coffee, and go, it wasn't all perfect, but it's pretty good. I'd come back and do this one again if I could. Now, that, to me, was the overall happy life. So you have the aggression. And we're going to talk in the next point. There's a time for the aggression. Or do we have gentleness in our voice? Do people feel the love that I'm really interested in them and their welfare, and I'm not just trying to manipulate them or make them look like a fool so I can look good in a lot of things there? So we're going to go from chaos to peace. He says we're first pure, then we're peaceable. Now we're going back to pure in a minute. I want to be on peaceable for a moment. When we talk about being peaceable, we're not talking about being cowards who hide out in a corner and do nothing. I'm just going to sit here in the bunker and I'm going to cover up so I don't want to offend anybody. If you speak the truth in the most loving, kind, considerate, gentle, divine way, you're going to offend people. Jesus did. There's no way around it. Why? Because there are people who do not want to hear the truth. End of story. If you're not telling them what they want to hear, then you're done. Now, if you want to catch yourself at it, here's a little thing. If you're on social media, it's easy to do this. So you're sitting there, you're doing a little doom scrolling, and the reel comes along, and right now we're in the government shutdown, and so everybody's right, incidentally, I wish I had the answer for it there, but I just got to leave it at sarcasm. So I'm scrolling along and I come to the guy and boy, he's saying everything I want to hear. This sounds just great. And I'm like, I like this guy. I'm going to click like. And then the next one comes along and they're saying, I don't want to hear that. They're saying the other party's completely right. My party's completely wrong. I ain't going to click like. In fact, I'm not even going to finish this video, right? Now I've learned about my own prejudice a little bit. How much am I really willing to listen to both sides and really consider it? Now, I may end up listening to both sides and still stand where I stand, but I just don't want to hide away from it and say, I'm never going to say anything, never going to think anything, I'm never going to look at anything I don't like. That's not going to work because life is going to hit you one way or the other. Life is going to make you look at things you don't like. We really don't get the option of hiding out. You can try, but then look, you're going to miss a whole lot of good stuff too. So the wisdom from above is going to endeavor to build peace. So when somebody is on the different side of you of whatever issue, it may just be where to go out to eat or where to do your vacation, the goal is to build peace. Because Christ said in what we call the Beatitudes, blessed are the peacemakers. That's Matthew 5:9, and that's what we want to be. People who build peace. One of the things God hates over in Proverbs 7 is people who sow discord. So we're going to be makers of peace. We're going to let the peace of Christ rule in our heart. Otherwise, it's not going to just be a visitor now and then. I'll let it in once or twice a year so I can say I do it. I had an extended family member. Dad tells me this story. He was Catholic. He did not like chocolate, but for Lent, you had to give up something. So once a year, he'd eat a chocolate bar, even though he didn't like it. So when Lent rolled around, he could give up chocolate. I told that to a priest friend of mine. He said it perfect. He said, well, that wasn't very sincere, was it? And he was spot on. That was not sincere. But we don't want to be one of these people who can look at 3 or 4 places in our life's history, or maybe more, a dozen or whatever, and go, look, we were peacemakers there, and I was a peacemaker back in 76, and look, in 1992, I really did something good. Well, that's great. But what we want is to let the peace of Christ rule, dominate. That is the principle we live by, where we're always looking, how can we have peaceable relationships with one another? And again, I'm not saying you can't disagree. I'm just saying there's a way to disagree agreeably. I would say our society has pretty much lost that art, but it is a skill that we can learn to do. Peace is not passivity. So we talked about gentleness a while ago. Let's read Matthew 21:12. I'm thinking, if I can remember, I hadn't even wrote it down yet, but I want to do a lesson on what I'm going to call the paradoxes in the Bible. Because there are a lot of paradoxes, and one of the things that happens is that somebody will be reading along and they'll read like the James passage where it says, well, you're supposed to be peaceable. You're supposed to be gentle. And that's all they see. Well, the picture is way bigger than what we read there in James 3. What was that, verse 17? So now I'm in 21 and 12 is where I'm trying to get to. Yes. And Jesus entered the temple and drove out all those who were buying and selling in the temple, overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. And he said, it is written, my house shall be called a house of prayer, but you are making it a robber's den. Wait a minute. I thought Christians were supposed to be gentle all the time. When I think of Christ taking his whip in there, overturning money tables, I can't put the word gentle on that. Can you? I mean, I got to get comedic just to illustrate that. You know, and he walks up to the guy's table and goes, excuse me, I need to turn this over. Would you step back for a moment while I do that? You know, no. This was a time that was intense. So when we say we are first peaceable, we are not saying you are a doormat. We are not saying you have to sit passively in a corner and you can't get involved. You get involved where you want to get involved. You get to pick that in your life, but you pick those places. The only thing I can tell you is you do it like a Christian would do it. You get involved with that attitude. But I think we need Christians more and more involved in different places of life. Now, again, you get to pick what those places are for you. One thing is not for everybody. It's just when you do it, you let your light shine. And you have to sing the little song to yourself in your head, this little Christian light of mine. You do it. That'd be fine. That's what you want to keep in mind. So we fight the good fight of faith, 1 Timothy 12. That's what we are. Soldiers of Christ, arise. Put your armor on. So, peaceful? Yes. But we're fighting for peace. And I know that's a paradox. That would be a good one to put in that paradox lesson that I'm thinking about. He said we're pure. Wisdom from above is first pure. So we're not deluded by a lot of self-interest and hidden motives. There are people who literally pick their churches based on what can I get out of it. I had an appliance salesman once tell me he attended the church he went to because there were a whole lot of members there, like back in the day, there'd been about 300, and he thought he'd have better chances at making more sales. Now tell me, why was that guy going to church? See, that wasn't pure. There was a hidden motive there. And while most people could not see it, and I would not have known it had he not said it, God always knows it. God knows exactly. So we're not going to be deluded by that self-interest where it's just, me, how can I work this crowd? Now, we always have been tempted to divide our loyalty somewhat. This is not new back then. They could be Christian as long as they didn't mess with the other religions in their community. And there was a mixed community. I would say that unless you were really in the middle of a center of Judaism, like let's say Jerusalem, if you were in one of the other cities of the world, you would have all kinds of idols and gods and practices all around you. And you would have to find your way to navigate that with peace and yet hold your stand, not compromise the two. We're there today a little different way. However, our community is becoming a little more multiple whatever. You hear more about Buddhists now. You hear more about Hindus now. Of course, you hear more about Islam now. You hear more and more about these other world religions, and we bump into them sometimes. I mean, pardon my snarkiness, but all you got to do is go to a gas station, right? Who's behind the counter? I mean, we've got foreigners around here, and I don't mean to come across too snarky, but they got that red dot in the middle of their forehead, which I do not understand what it means. And if they spoke better English, I'd ask them, but I just don't want to struggle through that conversation. There's that is happening even here in Pine Bluff. That is happening, and we can't divide our loyalties and say, well, if you want to be Hindu, you can be Hindu. That'd be fine. No, I'm sorry. Christ said no one comes to the Father except through him. That was John 14:6. And so we have to find that way to not stir up things in a destructive way and not get all tied up in some hidden motive or another. We want to keep our hearts pure. This one's definitely worth reading. Go back to Psalms 24. And if you want to remember where this one is, everybody knows about the 23rd Psalm, right? Probably one of the most popular passages in the Bible. Well, Psalms 23, it's that one right after it. Right now we're just going to read verse 3 and 4. Who may ascend into the hill of the Lord? Where do you want to go? I want to get closer to him. We just sang, closer to thee. Okay, how do I get closer to thee? Who may stand in his holy place? Verse 4 tells you, he who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul to falsehood and has not sworn deceitfully. Let's do verse 5. He shall receive a blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. That's what I want. Isn't that what you want? Of course. And now we have the recipe for exactly that. In Matthew 5:8, it'd say, blessed are the pure in heart. Again, same idea. We want to be that. So that purity is going to weave through everything we do. It can be costly at times. It's not always going to be popular. There are people who simply do not think rational. There are a lot of people that are intimidated, offended, and
threatened by anybody who doesn't share their ideological ideas, their political ideas, their moral ideas. I can't change what people believe, but I can keep myself pure. So we ask if our heart is really single toward God, or are we scattered across a whole bunch of other lesser kind of lovers, like add money and popularity and those kind of things in. Then in James 3:17, he's going to say we're full of mercy. So earthly wisdom wants to win the arguments, and the wisdom from below loves to keep score. Now, we don't get to keep score. If somebody offends us 70 times 7, we forgive every one of them. We forgive one another as God in Christ forgave us, Ephesians 4:32. So instead of seeking to keep score, and I got to prove to you I'm right, I don't care if I have to stomp all over you. No, don't do that. We're seeking souls. That's what we're here. This is what makes our fight the good fight a little odd. Yes, I'm out to defeat the people on Satan's team. Absolutely, I'm out to win. But I'm not out to destroy them. I'm out to convert them and win them over to my team so we can stand together. If I was out to destroy them, then I would just want to annihilate them without any concern about the consequences. I just want them out, gone, off the stage, and, not a factor whatsoever. No, I want them on the stage. I want them in the big middle of the stage with me, in harmony with me. And that's what makes it a little trickier. So Matthew 5:7 says, blessed are the merciful. You want blessings, learn to be merciful. And merciful basically means we're just going to help relieve the struggling and stress of other people. That's probably its most fundamental thing. Now, from God's level, it's like he's not going to give us the punishment we deserve, because what do we all deserve? The wages of sin is death. And then God steps in with his mercy and says, but I tell you what, let me give you a way out of that sentence. That's mercy. That's what it is. So you can think about the Good Samaritan if you want. Everybody else is passing by. The guy beat up laying on the side of the road. He stops. He kneels down and helps. And then he puts in his own resources and his own time. And as he's leaving the inn in the story, he says, if there's anything more due, I'll pay you when I come back through. There's just some mercy. So mercy is a really great theory. When we talk about it in the abstract form, we're like, yeah, I like that. But when it becomes personal, and now we have to extend mercy, and we're the one that's been hurt in the process, yes, that's a challenge, because we're just human. And finally, James 5:3-17, we're going to be without hypocrisy. Who are we when nobody else is looking? Now, when I say nobody else is looking, I don't mean absolute 100% isolation. What I mean is behind closed doors. You're at the house with your wife. It's just you and her. She's been with you for 5, 10, 20, 50, 60 years, however long you've been together. You're totally comfortable around her because, hey, she stayed with me for 60 years. When she's going, it's all cool. Who are we then? Or if it's just the private family get-togethers, and all the families have their little things, and that's wonderful. Who am I in that? Not just here. We're not here a whole lot. 15 minutes in the foyer before after services. Now, I'm not a real good actor, but I can fake most people out for about 10 minutes if I need to. That's not a big issue. But I can't fake you out for 15 years. I certainly can't fake you out if we have an ongoing relationship that's involved on a daily basis. You're going to learn exactly who I am and what I am, for better or worse. That's the way it works. So who are we when no one is looking or few people are looking, and earthly wisdom is going to act holy just on the surface? I don't want anybody to know my dark little secrets. I got to keep everything private or they won't like me. If somebody will not like you because you have flaws, you have the wrong friend. Because a friend loves at all times. And as iron sharpens iron, we're supposed to help one another. And if so we reject you because you're a little messed up in one area or another, then something's not right overall. I'd let those people let me know who they are, and I'd be glad to let them walk as Christ let people walk. Matthew 23:25, The hypocrites, they just polish the outside. They just want to look good on the outside. They're not really worried about the inside. Christ says you really need to clean the inside, because if you get the inside clean, guess what? Automatically is going to happen to the outside. It's going to be clean too. If the inside's right and it's purer, there's no way ugly stuff can come out. So I saw a speaker the other day. He's on the stage. This guy has passed on. I'll think of his name before I get to the end of the story, maybe. But he's holding an orange. And he's literally holding an orange. He said, if I squeeze this orange, what's going to come out? Of course, the audience said, it's orange juice. He says, but if I'm really, really mad and angry and I squeeze this orange, what's going to come out? Everybody said, well, orange juice. He said, what if I'm happy and life is really good and I squeeze this orange? What's coming out? The orange juice. So no matter how you squeeze it, the only thing that can come out is what's inside of it. That's us. Life is going to squeeze us. And the only thing that can come out is what's in us. Now, that's a whole other deep lesson, maybe a series. So we want to work on the inside. We get the inside right, I don't have to give a whole lot of worry about the outside. Proverbs 10:9 wants us to walk in our integrity. Integrity that's consistent, honest, not corrupted with things that are defiled. Our integrity is going to make us stronger, and we're not going to have anything to hide. And I think that's a pretty good place to be. So the righteous are going to stumble. That's James 3:2. We all stumble in many things. It's going to happen because nobody bats 1,000. It is not about achieving absolute perfection, perpetual perfection. It's about consistency. It's about persistence. It's about getting back up, getting back up. I should have found a proverb where it said the righteous man falls 7 times, but he rises again. That's what we want. So we're going to fall forward. John Maxwell did a great book on falling forward. I may still have it if you're interested in John Maxwell's work. Heavenly wisdom. It's not just information. It's transformation. It's becoming a new creation in Christ Jesus. That's what it's about. So our fruit of wisdom. We had James 3. I'm not going to reread that. Our time's running out. It's a deliberate act. You make the choice. You start studying it. You start learning it. And distilling the wisdom of the ages one way or the other. Heavenly wisdom is going to produce good fruit in you. There's just no way it's not going to produce it. The wisest person is not the loudest. Now, some people think that's the way to do it. I'll just yell louder than you. I'll yell meaner than you. But that's not wisdom. Maybe a time you need to yell. I'll let you judge that. But don't confuse volume with wisdom. Now, this one I like. I've thought about this one 4 or 5 times. We live in an ocean of information. I love it. I love the access we have to everything through Google or Chat or Bart or whoever, Perplexity. We've got more Chat GPT versions now. There's so much stuff out there. It's great. And yet we're in a desert of wisdom, aren't we? Look around the world. I know some wise people. I know a few folks that are doing good. Right? But look at so many of them. It's like, wow. How did that ever happen? They used to teach first-year college students or senior high students Latin. I have a friend that's a teacher at UAPB. One of her courses is remedial English for high school graduates. How did we do that? Information doesn't mean we're smart. So it's going to grow deliberately. Paul would say, don't lose courage. You're going to reap. Keep at it. So I want us to pray this prayer. Lord, give me wisdom that looks more like you, because that's what the Christian thing is about. It's about becoming more and more Christ-like. So if you're on that journey, just keep working at it. One baby step at a time is really progress. That's all you want to make. If you fumbled off of that journey or hadn't started it, we're here to help you any way we can while we stand and sing.